On a lighter topic, rumor has it that you've been invited next month to go to Davos with the World Economic Forum. I
Yes.
don't know if you're allowed to bring a plus one
I
or
need
what
to
I need to
ask.
do. Maybe we can chat after this offline about what it takes.
I can ask. I can ask.
Welcome to Direct to Chile. I am your host, Amit Navalrai, and I have just completed 10 years living in Santiago, the capital of Chile, where I run a wholesale and e-commerce business in consumer electronics called Mobile Hut. We also manage lots of e-commerce brands in Chile under a new business called Direct to Chile, hence the name of the podcast. Why Chile? Because we believe Latin America is home to over 600 million people and is projected to be the fastest growing e-commerce market in the next decade. Especially as the rest of the world seems to enter into a period of recession, we believe companies in major developed economies will start looking outside their comfort zone. And we hope they enter Latin America and they learn a little bit about what it's like to do business in Chile through listening to our podcast. So hope you tune in and enjoy the show. Thank you. My guest today is Komal Dadlani. Welcome to the show, first of all.
Thank you very much. Excited to be here.
Thank you for being here. You're the first person ever. I'm going to give a small background, what I think I know about you, and then I'll let you dig in. Komal is a biochemist with a Master's of Science from the University of Chile. And in 2013, you started Lab for You. Lab for You was made to democratize STEM education and change the way that science is taught with a lab in the pocket. Today, Lab for You is present in Latin America and the US and has impacted already more than 100,000 students throughout the last few years. Your list of awards is a little bit intimidating. I'll run through a few of
I'm s-
them. Yeah, you have been awarded the Cartier Women's Initiative Awards in 2015, the Toyota Mother of Invention Award 2017, MIT Technology Review 35 Under 35 Leaders in LATAM 2018, the Ashoka Fellow, the Young Global Leader by the World Economic Forum, as well as being internationally recognized by the New York Times, Forbes, People Magazine, CNBC, and BBC. I'm sure I've missed a few out, but let's just leave it at that. And over the last few years, with what you've done at Lab for You, you were one of the first investments from no other than the Multicultural Innovation Lab at Morgan Stanley. So congratulations for that. I want to dig in by explaining to our listeners what it is that Lab for You does, and then we can talk about the business behind it.
Yeah, of course. At Lab for You, we are a mission driven company. We are democratizing science education and changing the way science is taught by transforming something that is in the pockets of thousands of students around the world. That's smartphones. So, what we do is we transform smartphones into science labs using the built in sensors that smartphones and tablets already have. Many don't know, but smartphones have accelerometers, microphones, camera, and we leverage all these sensors and design science labs. And that's what we take to schools and universities so that every student can have a lab in their pocket. That's, in summary, what we do.
That's fascinating, Komal. Listening to your podcast, which I recommend our listeners to follow. It's called Lab for You. You mentioned that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. And I think that's like the slogan behind your company. Can you elaborate a little bit more on your thinking behind that, please?
Yeah, so this quote is something that it's close to our hearts because we truly believe that this talent that is everywhere, it can be in Chile, Mexico, Colombia, India, China, the US, it's universal talent. You have students that are creative everywhere in the world, but not always with the right opportunities to grow and build the next technologies of the world. So I truly believe that the next Einstein or Marie Curie or Elon Musk can be anywhere in the world. And the idea is for us to, inspire those future change makers and make a difference in the world. So our thinking behind is if we're able to give these students the opportunities to develop these skills so that they can be the next change makers of tomorrow and solve world's biggest challenges, we can make a real business. And that's why for us, business is not just about making profit, but also having an impact in the world.
That's great. I have two sons and I want them to be scientists. I want them to be the next Elon Musk or Elon Musk pre-Twitter, obviously, not the new Elon Musk.
Agreed,
Can, you,
agreed.
can we talk about the actual dollars, the business model? Who pays for your product, and are you profitable? Can you tell us a little bit about that, please?
Yeah, so we've been running our business for quite some time now. I can say that in the first few years, we did not have a business model. We were testing out different models. We were trying to sell to public schools that don't have money. We got some initial private schools as clients, but that was not enough. So in the past 3 years, we pivoted the business model, and now we've got two models. It's a B2B SaaS, software as a service, that we offer. One directly to schools, where we offer our physics, chemistry, and biology product. It's like a suite, a platform where teachers and students can experiment with our products.
Can you say how much?
So, for example, we have products from $30 per student per year to $100 per student per year. It's a subscription range depending on the platform, the number of students, etc. So we offer this package. So it's B2B SaaS, not B2C. So it's not like Duolingo that you download and you're the end user. It's traditional B2B SaaS. The innovation is in the product itself. It's not traditional textbooks to learn science. It's not learning how to ride a bicycle reading a book. It is actually experimenting and learning science through experimentation. So that's one model directly to school. Another model that has helped us to grow and have impact in society is we offer our products to corporations that have social responsibility areas, and with a model that we call impact as a service. And in that model, we offer large corporations in Chile, hey, help the schools around your community with these experiments where we can brand experiments, and these future students will end up working in your corporations, in your companies. For example, in Mexico, we have a client which is Boeing, the aviation industry leader. Boeing, you probably, many of your listeners have traveled in a Boeing 767. So one of our clients is Boeing, through a foundation where we implement our solutions in Querétaro, Mexico, around their factory, so that these students can learn the physics of an airplane, and they become engineers to work in these large corporations. So we're building the future talent pool for these large corporations. We do the same in Chile. We work with mining industry. We work with different telcos, so that they're building the future talent of their industries.
How big is the sales team? I mean, how do you get a client like Boeing? I can imagine a sales process with a multinational like Boeing will be months.
Yeah. So
Or do they
yeah, it
come
is.
to
It
you?
is. No, no, no. It is. We're speaking about 6 to 1 year sales cycle. Our sales cycles are annual, and that's why you need investment in order to 1 year investment, because that deals this size are going to close. I mean, you have to be really lucky to close a sale like in 3 months, depending on the budgeting cycle, but it's normally 6 months to 1 year. In Chile, we work with Entel, we work with Escondida BHP, we work with SQM, like large mining companies.
So I'm assuming the margins, being a SaaS model, is pretty high, over 50, 60%. But the problem here is the working capital required to fund the operations. How are you doing in terms of, last funding round, next funding round, valuations, what's happened in the last
So
6 months? Markets have sunk. So
yeah, the market is a bit complicated right now, but I'm very confident because we've since we pivoted to the business model, we've grown 250%. We've grown 3x in revenue in schools and clients, so we're very happy with that growth. And in terms of margins, we're pretty close to break even. I mean, we've decided not to break even because we wanted to fund a bit more of growth and a bit more improvement in product, but we're pretty close to break even as we move forward. I'm very confident on the margins and the growth of the business.
okay, and can you tell us a
And
little bit about the team? Like, how
yeah,
big is the team?
so we're 21, including
All in
myself,
Chile?
mostly in Chile and a few in Mexico. So mostly Chile, Mexico, where we have a technology team, iOS developers, Android developers, tech lead that is back end, front end, that see all the apps and all the platform info, etc. Then we have a product team that does design and product design, UI, UX, content design. We've got physics teacher, chemistry teacher, biology teacher. There's always constantly designing new content. So that's big part of the team is product education and technology. And then we have a smaller teams. One is impact, to implement in the schools, teacher success, customer success, onboarding of new customers, training the teachers so that they can use our products, which is traditional onboarding and customer success in a SaaS company. And we've got two BDRs, business development reps, and myself.
Let's step back a little bit. How did you think about such an idea? I mean, when I read about it, I was fascinated. How does one think about changing science for the world by creating, experiments using the mobile phone? I mean, where did you get the idea? How did you start? Were you funded by your mom and dad? Did you get money from friends and family? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Just to start with, I mean, I love my family, but traditional medium class family, daughter of an immigrant family in Chile, it was not money from mom and dad. So we'll keep that clear from the beginning. I'll get to the first funding cycle, but with the idea, you first start identifying a problem. So I studied biochemistry. I identified a problem during my science education. So the first step is identifying a problem that you want to solve. Science classes are overly theoretical. They're boring. Students are not engaged. Students don't decide to study a STEM career. STEM from science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And the future of the industry is going to be related to STEM. More than 70% of the jobs of the future will be related to science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But today, only 16% of the students are interested in STEM. So you see that there is a gap. So the first step, starting anything, a foundation, a business, a startup, is identifying the problem. What is the problem you have in your industry? How big is the problem? Like, does it make sense from a market perspective, from a problem perspective to solve it? And do we have the current technology to actually solve it? So I could have, and the initial idea was, okay, let's build low-cost lab equipment. I mean, I was working in a lab. I worked with so many lab equipments. Let's start building low-cost, physical lab equipment. And I'm no Toyota. I cannot build 100,000 colorimeters for the 100,000 schools or the spectrophotometers and stuff like that. So in an event organized by Startup Chile, when I was in Universidad de Chile, I saw a poster that said, Startup Weekend, change the world, and building a startup, sponsored by Startup Chile. I went to that event and I met my co-founder Alvaro, who's a software engineer, and I told, I pitched this idea of building low-cost labs, whatever that means, and he was like, hey, you want to build a lab? And I was like, yeah, this is how experiments work. This is how, the equipment would work. And he was like, yeah, but let's combine it with mobile devices. And that's when we did research. What can we do with mobile devices? We found some research articles. We found that games, the games use sensors. How these car games, they use the accelerometer and the gyroscope for movement. So why don't we leverage these existing sensors, but instead of games, we'll design science experiments to improve science education instead of expensive lab equipment? And that's how the idea started mutating and growing.
Great. So Startup Chile, would you say, was fundamental in terms of the initial investment? I believe it's $40,000 that they
Yes,
give for
absolutely.
no equity.
Absolutely. No equity. So we have to put it in context. For a 23, 24-year-old with no wealthy background, with no knowledge of startups, like I had no idea what a startup was. It's like I was a lab rat. No idea, no knowledge of what is an angel investor, what is a VC, what chemical formula is VC that everybody's talking about. Like no absolute knowledge about it. Just entering into this startup world, which is fascinating, and that you could build something and test the idea, and the government of Chile is going to give you $40,000. That was the most amount of money I ever saw in my life. Like for a 24-year-old, that was a game changer, and that's when we started. So now 10 years forward, now we've built a business, we've raised more than $1 million, and we've got investors like Morgan Stanley and others, and from Silicon Valley. Like you can say that initial point was the tipping point to the growth we have today. I don't say it's like that for everyone, but at least for this Chilena daughter of immigrant family, it was.
Sure. My experience with Startup Chile is slightly different. I think it's a great name that it gives the country in terms of brand equity. But I remember when I was an advisor for a couple of startups, one of the startups had an Indian, say, wife over here and their husband in India. And she became friends with us, and she basically told us that I took their money and sent it to India to pay bills, they made up bills just because they wanted to secure the money. So she said that she thought it was too good to be true, that the government was giving $40,000. So I questioned the due diligence done and if they have the resources to actually evaluate the startups and the use of funds. But as an idea, I think it's a wonderful concept, Startup Chile.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have terrible examples and cases, but from a brand equity perspective, what it's done for Chile and the startup ecosystem in Chile, and if you think about it, for Corfo, the government agency in Chile that runs Startup Chile, the budget allocated for Startup Chile is very small. So this investment, a couple of $1 million a year, to build this brand equity internationally and find these success stories where you'll have 1% of success story or 2% of success story and maybe 3% in hiring local talent and building that local talent, not great percentage. I think the return of impact and the return of investment is high, keeping aside the terrible cases of people that stole Chilean government money and used it somewhere else. I agree. Not all is great.
I remember also when I offered my services as an advisor, as a mentor for startups, I told them I would like to help in retail, e-commerce, fintech, investment banking. I even offered my mall. I have quite a few stores in the malls. And many times, say on Monday, 12 to 5 p.m., where there's not much traffic, I offered retail space to startups to come and demo their products in my stores. I offered it 2 years in a row. Not one company did they introduce me to take my space. I work with department stores like Falabella. I work with Mercado Libre. I work with Mall Plaza. I work with some big names in Chile. And I told them, listen, these startups, many of them just need a door to be opened, and I'm happy to do the introduction. And what they did 6 months later, they asked me to be an advisor for a mining company. Now, mining, pardon my French, but my knowledge is zero. So I was like, I don't want to waste my time and, more importantly, their time.
Yeah.
If I can add value to a company, I'm all for it. But if I'm going to be useless as an advisor, what's the point? Anyway, let's not rant more about Startup Chile. Let's move on back to Lab for You. Tell me a little bit about your plans for Lab for You. Where do you see yourself growing? What's the direction? Do you want to be worldwide? Do you have competitors out there that might day one buy you? What are you thinking of an exit? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so one has to understand that while doing business in Chile, Chile is a small country. So whoever wants to build a global international company has to think of Chile as a starting point to validate your idea, to grow your idea and expand in Latin America and the world. Chile is a great starting point to validate, to grow, but then to expand, you can think of Chile as a starting point for international expansion in Spanish-speaking Latin America. And in that case, early on we knew that we wanted to be a global company. Chile, 18 million inhabitants, right? When you think of Mexico, more than 100 millions. When you think of Brazil, more than 300 million. Only Ciudad de Mexico, which is Mexico City and the state of Mexico City, we're talking about 20 million people. A city, or if you think of India, Mumbai is what, 15 million or 16 million. And entire Chile as a country is 18 million. So from a market perspective, that you want to grow globally, or at least Latin America, to have proper return of investment and of a technology that's so powerful like ours, and that's our case. It's a close recommendation because I'm recommending my company and myself for it to be a global company. But in terms of market penetration and reach, we do want to be a leader in Latin America for science education and start. And Chile is a great starting point because you've got a safe market to start with. The corruption's levels in Mexico or Colombia are way higher, and here you've got at least a system that is able to work. We've got good relationships with customers that we've been able to build over time, private companies or even schools and universities. So that's pseudo stability helps us have predictable revenue, understand the problem, build the business, sell and renew the business. So to start a business and to grow it locally, I think Chile is a great starting point, as opposed to Argentina. My friends from Argentina might differ, but the instability in Argentina makes it a bit more difficult. I have many friends from Argentina that come to Chile to start their businesses.
So what is the strategy exactly? I mean, what is the next market? Do you look at, okay, I want to enter Mexico, Colombia, Peru. I need to hire local in-house sales teams in the ground, or do you knock on the chambers of commerce of each city and like say, listen, this is who we are. This is what we've done in Chile. This is who we're after. Please open the door for us. And then you do a 1 week roadshow. What is the exact strategy that you have in mind?
Great question. So for us, as our main market today is Chile, is having a wider market penetration in Chile. Step number one. Step number two, we already have clients like Boeing and Cemex in Mexico. So expanding the Mexican market is very attractive. And from Chile and Mexico also sees Chile as, as a great place, as a great country to buy products from. We've got solid developers, solid products, good reputation in that sense. So for us, Mexico is the next step where we already have clients. We have the language similarities, of course, and our content is in English and in Spanish, and our apps and our products are in English and in Spanish. But there's this. We already have a localization of some of the content for Mexico, and the go-to-market strategy in a traditional B2B SaaS model, you hire what you call the SDRs and BDRs, sales development reps, business development reps. But when you are early stage, the founder is the one closing the first few deals. So I've closed the first few deals. I get the model. This is the presentation. This is the model we implement. This is the pricing. And now that I have standardized that model, I can give it to someone else. A sales manager I can hire, or a business development manager I can hire, a BDR or an SDR or a rep, and say, this is the model you're going to implement. And just like in every sales and business model, you've got a funnel. You talk to 150 might show interest, 25 might ask for a quote, and 10 out of those 100 will convert into clients. So understanding that those conversion rates and then the unit economics, I think, is important before expanding the business. So what we've done first in Chile is understand our unit economics, understand our margins, understand our model, so that we can expand that and tweak it for the other countries.
But it is the hard school cold calling sales strategy.
There are different ways that we've tested, and some have worked, some haven't. Initially, it was all by reference, with my personal networks, hey, Amit, do you know the sustainability manager from Mall Plaza? Can you introduce me to him? So the first few deals are a lot of referrals, right? And then now we have an inbound and outbound strategy. Inbound, we make sure that our website, the CEO of our website, just making sure that we have everything we need for inbound leads to come. In fact, today I have a call with an inbound lead that came through our website, right? And could be a potential customer. So that's inbound. And then when it comes to outbound, we have certain methodologies. We use different tools like Woodpecker for emailing. We use Meet Alfred for automatizing the workflow and the flow in LinkedIn Sales Navigator. So different tools that help us optimize the funnel. But in the end, it's a potential client talking to a potential person in our team in order to show them the impact of our work.
And in terms of closing the deal on the last few years with, the COVID era that we went through, were things done online through Zoom, or did you have to go meet and shake hands?
No, everything was online. Most of our important clients we closed online, and it was great. I mean, I think COVID definitely, changed the way people do business. We are way more comfortable having an online meeting, and in the end, the product metrics and product engagement is what in the end will count to renew, to continue working. So if we're able to share that value proposition, we just need the famous band, right? The person who has the budget, the authority, the need, and the timing. If you have that band and you understand that ideal customer profile and you focus on finding those profiles, I think you're in a good place. And the other thing for a B2B SaaS, we need to understand is that many times the buyer is not the user. So for example, if you're buying an enterprise software, Salesforce, the manager, the CRO, Chief Revenue Officer, will not enter Salesforce and type down and do the work on Salesforce. He's going to buy it for his team. So the user is not paying for it, but the the buyer persona, the decision maker is purchasing it. And many times what happens is that there's a disconnect between the users and the buyer personas. For example, in our model with schools, the principal is not going to use the product, the director of the school is not going to use the product is going to be used by teachers and students. So the decision maker is different to the end user. So convincing both of these is so important for the product to be successful.
I think that's fascinating, and I wish you all the best for the growth of Lab for You. And hopefully, one of our listeners contacts you afterwards and asks more about the actual product and how to go about it. I wanted to ask you more about the challenges of doing business in Chile. After all, the podcast is for people who want to enter into business in Latin America and Chile. I, for example, in our business, since we work with malls, when I learned that in December we pay double rent, and that's all the malls in Chile, I mean, for me, that was criminal. I can't imagine Amazon charging double commission because it's December, you know? So things like that, for example, we've been robbed many times, not just external, but our own employees. I've never witnessed so much theft that I've seen in Chile. To give you an idea, Red Bulls over here at pharmacies and in counters have the lock on top. So, you know, I've never seen a Red Bull, just a soft drink, a cheap drink, or Energizer drink, you know, with a lock. So things like that are things that I've only seen in Chile, right? So what are the things that you've only seen in Chile or that has shocked you in your years of doing business in Chile that you can maybe share a couple stories?
The challenge in Latin America and in Chile is you start with not trusting. There's a trust issue in society in general. So that's the starting point. Is not that I won't trust you in the end, is that I start with that fear that I cannot trust this person. So that there's a trust issue to begin with in Latin America. And we also have to understand from a socioeconomical perspective, we're speaking about a region that is coming out of poverty, an emerging market that is just now starting to observe what wealth means. But you see the indexes, whether it's the Gini index or the GDP, you see that there is poverty and there is inequality. The wealthiest 1% is extremely wealthy, and the poorest, 20% is extremely poor. And there is this collective anger from social political reasons. There's this social unrest that you see in these countries. So one has to understand the context, the social political context in these countries before doing business, and understanding that people will not trust and that you need to gain that trust. And it's difficult because, an international company that comes to invest in Chile and wants to grow the business, and the business can grow, will have to take that leap of faith to first give that trust to its people. And once the employee trusts you, they can be very loyal. But you need to pass that threshold, right, to build that trust and show that you want the best for the community, you want the best for your employees and for your workers and their families. And once you're able to prove that, I think it should be good business. But initially, be aware there is a trust issue, and then you need to cross that threshold. I don't know if you've seen a similar.
I'm a little bit naive. I trust people and I assume that they're good. You know, that famous, you treat people how you want them to treat you. So I've always been like that from day one. And a lot of my employees have come to me and said, Amit, you trust too easily. You see the good in people. And I'm like, okay, I thought that was part of being a good manager, but it didn't seem to help much over here. I had an IT guy, my head of IT, who was on over $2,000 a month salary. We caught him on a video stealing 2 mobile phones worth under $100. So in the exit interview, I said, listen, I'm going to the police, or you sign over here because I've got proof that you stole. And he has a son. And the son is exactly the same age as my elder son. So it just struck me how a guy who wasn't the lowest paid employee in the company, he had a decent salary for Chilean standards, and he was caught stealing $100 worth of phones when he's earning $2,000 a month. So in the exit interview, I begged him. I said, I need an answer. I need to understand why. I just need an answer. He said, porque estaba ahí, because it was there. And I was like, so? I was like, well, it was there. It was available. I didn't think I'd get caught. So I did it. And that, for me, coming from Asia and coming from India, where I've been working, I've just done 10 years in Chile. And before that, I was 10 years in India. I mean, that concept of stealing because it was just there, that's something that shocked me. about working in Chile. So it goes back to the trust element.
Absolutely. I'm not saying, don't trust. I'm just saying that the community in general, lacks that trust. I'm also like you. I initially trust because it's for me it's like a probabilities game. I know that most of the people I trust and I give my best to will return their best. And there will be a very small percentage that won't, but because the 9 out of 10 will be amazing relationships for life, I'm willing to lose that one person that, I gave him or her all my trust and, just like, failed on me. So I'm willing to take that risk, but it's very personal, I would say. And regarding, the culture, I think one has to understand that because of the social economical differences, even in education, and the reason I work in education is it is about education in the end. We are way behind educational standards. If you look into the PISA international results of the OECD, Latin America has the worst results. Of course, Singapore and Hong Kong and China and everyone, they've got and Finland, and they've got the top results, and Latin America has the worst results, and some African countries. So you have to understand that there is an educational problem, but we're moving towards building that talent, and that's why investing in education in Latin America for me is so important, because there is talent. We just need to direct it positively and with the right skills, with the right values, so that they can continue growing.
The main reason why I look back as to why I wanted to do this podcast was because I want to encourage businesses from Europe and America, around the world, really, since their economies are starting to shrink. And Latin America obviously has probably the fastest growing e-commerce business in the next decade. I'm trying to encourage people to come here and do business here in Chile with people they can trust. And I don't think we're doing a very good job about encouraging them to come to this side of the world, but it's better to come with their eyes wide open as to what they're going to encounter when they come to this region. So I appreciate your words, and I agree with you fully. On a lighter topic, rumor has it that you've been invited next month to go to Davos with the World Economic Forum. I
Yes.
don't know if you're allowed to bring a plus one or,
I
or
need
what
to
I need
ask.
to do. Maybe we can chat after this offline about
I can ask. I can ask.
what it takes to
Uh,
be a plus one. But tell us about that. How were you invited? What are you going to do there? I think it's an amazing experience, but tell me more about that, whatever you can share.
in 2020, I was selected by the World Economic Forum to be part of this group of leaders. So they, in each region, they select a group of leaders that they call young global leaders, leaders that are making a difference in the world, that are solving one of the world's biggest challenges. And I think we spoke yesterday in our previous call about the social development goals, like the sustainable development goals of the United Nations, the SDG goals, the sustainable development goals. And these are 17 goals that the United Nations has to solve world's biggest challenges, healthcare, gender equality, education, climate action, etc. And the World Economic Forum selects global leaders that have reached a position where they can continue and grow their impact if they had, the network to do it. So they select these leaders, and I'm, very happy to be part of this group. They invited me to write a blog for the World Economic Forum. I invite everyone to check out and type my name, Komal Dadlani, Lab for You, World Economic Forum, and I speak about the future of education and how it has changed, after COVID. And this group of leaders is invited to Davos to share with other global leaders and discuss about challenges we're facing today, like climate issue, education, economy, the Great Reset, and discuss and partner to actually do something about it, and not just stand still and act as if nothing is happening. We have global issues today, so I'm very happy to be part of this group and attend the conference where we can discuss about these global issues and find solutions and partner nationally and internationally, and hopefully bring back to Chile and continue impacting in Latin America.
I mean, I think it's going to be an amazing experience. And when you get back, let's meet in person. And I
Absolutely.
want to hear all about it. All about it.
Absolutely. In the WEF, just to something very short, people are very critical as well in the World Economic Forum and in all these global forums. For example, there's a lot of investment in the metaverse, after Facebook became Meta. and there's a lot of investment in the metaverse, and all these companies are investing, billions, like in billions. And I heard this amazing young global leader say, "Hey, I don't care about the metaverse. What about the human verse?" And we can you actually taste strawberry and bread and sugar and rice in the metaverse? The people dying out there from hunger. We haven't been able to solve hunger, and you're investing billions in the metaverse. So people are critical about this global investments when there's still so many challenges in the world. But I think it's good to have these healthy discussions and debates.
So I guess you are in an investment world shorting Facebook and buying, I don't know, Elon Musk and Kathy Wood's companies. Speaking of
Yeah.
investments, if I
Yeah.
gave you $1 million today, or not me, but if somebody gave you $1 million today, what are the type of things that you would invest in?
So me personally or my company?
Let's go for personal. Let's go for
Okay,
personal.
let's go for personal. If I had to build a fund, like like a early stage fund, or a bit later stage fund, I wouldn't. I would invest in women. Women today receive 2.7% of the venture capital money out there. You go to Forbes data or PitchBook data or Crunchbase data, you see that in venture capital, women founders received 2.7% of all the billions invested. And that's nothing compared to the billions invested in male led companies. So, number one, I would invest in women.
Surely the idea and the team is more important, whether it's women or men led.
Absolutely, absolutely. But
Yeah.
there are some biases. The challenge is that there are some cognitive biases in the investment world, where investors invest in how alike a person is. So we see more men investing in white men, white heterosexual men investing in white heterosexual men, and not focusing only on the idea and the business, right? So and there's this investor from Shark Tank, and I can share you this so you put it in the podcast notes. So it is what's the bald one called? Steve.
Mr. Wonderful.
Yeah. So he quotes that his best investments with the higher return of investment have been in companies led by women.
Yes, but
Uh,
he's also just lost a billions in the SBF crypto.
oh yeah, 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 yeah. That
Yeah,
that
so
that I know
he's
too.
a
Yeah,
punter.
yeah,
He's a
yeah,
punter. He gambles a lot. But I
yeah,
get your
yeah.
point. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I get your point.
Yeah, so that we can reduce the gender gap, and we know, I mean, it's a fact that women have a long-term vision for building a sustainable business, and taking these educated guesses, right? And based on data and everything. So that's number one. Number two, depending on the stage of the company, whether it's early stage company, pre-seed, seed, they're finding product market fit, or whether it's later stage. So an early stage company, I would always bet on the team. Now, is this team a team that is going to make a difference, and they're going to try everything possible to find product market fit, to find a business model, to take the company to the next level, so that we can have, the 10x return. And I would also think like a fund. I mean, you're going to make 10 investments, and you're going to hope that one of them is going to give the return to the fund.
The next Google.
Exactly, right. So that's another. And I would be a social impact investor. I don't want to only make money, but I want to make money and think of social impact. And that's why, I don't know if your audience, or you've heard of the ESG, the ESG criteria in investment: environment, social, and governance. It's not just profit for the sake of profit. It's profit, but in a sustainable way, and building a net positive.
So you're different in that way to Mr. Wonderful, because he focuses only on the bottom line
Yeah,
and the dollar. And Mr.
yeah,
Wonderful, I believe when you mentioned that he's invested, or the most successful investments he's had,
yeah.
women-led companies,
Mm-hmm.
I believe they are mostly in hospitality, in the wine,
Okay.
in the wedding
Okay.
industries. And we all know that when it comes to hospitality, women, I won't say they're nicer, but
Yeah.
they know what's going on.
Yeah.
They know how to
And
treat people.
Mr. Wonderful, is it Kevin O'Leary?
Yes, Kevin O'Leary,
Yes. Yeah.
correct.
Yeah.
That's his
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
I'm more of a Mark Cuban kind of guy, but
Kind of guy. Okay. Okay.
yeah.
Wonderful. But
Anyway,
that's some of the things. And I've personally invested in companies that have shown great growth, companies that have bootstrapped. And once they find product market fit, they're starting to grow, with great unit economics. Their LTV CAC is higher than 6x, and with very small cost to acquire customer, they have great lifetime value. I've invested in those types of companies.
can you share any names?
Yeah, I think this is public information. I invested in a company called Cuenta in Mexico. It's a SaaS, it's a B2B SaaS company for mental health, especially post-pandemic life. And during the pandemic, many families, many students, many just employees have suffered mental health, and it's been taboo. And this company has been able to offer corporations products and services around mental health for their employees, increasing their retention, increasing their productivity. But the reason I invested is not only because of the great numbers that they showed in terms of unit economics and growth and revenue, is because the founding team was just incredible. I've invested in that and other smaller ones on equity crowdfunding through Brota. Brota is like an equity crowdfunding platform that I've invested in a couple there.
So tell us now, just to wrap up, tell us a little bit about you, about Komal. What are you reading? What are you watching? Your morning routine, your exercise routine. What keeps your mentally calm? Or what stresses you out? What's your vice?
I hike every morning. Try to hike every morning. Today, for example, I 5:45 in the morning. I was already hike. 6 in the morning, I was starting to hike the mountain to see the sunrise in the mountain. So I try to do it every week, twice a week or 3 times a week. I'm a morning person. Yes, I'm a morning person. I like to sleep early, wake up early. Listening to podcasts when I'm in the gym or walking or hiking, or reading books. I've got some favorites from the last period. Net Positive by Paul Polman, the CEO of Unilever. There's another book I like very much. I think I have it here. It's called The CEO Within. It's for founders and CEOs. So, or if you want to, the other thing, I was trying to check out some details. Venture Deals. Be Smarter Than Your Lawyer and Venture Capitalist. This one is also very good. What else do I have here? I still haven't started it yet, but I've got this one, Conscious Capitalism by John Mackay. So a few books I like reading about, so that I can grow. My vice reading Harry Potter.
I was thinking betting, alcohol, tobacco, drugs. I was thinking
Oh
those type
no,
of vices. Regular vices.
no. I'm vegan. I don't drink alcohol. I don't smoke. I pray, meditate. No, I think I would say vegan chocolate once in a while. Sugar, I would say, which is terrible for your health. So dessert would be terrible vice, when one has to reduce sugar intake.
Can I recommend one book for you? I'm not a big reader, but there's one about the story of Pixar, the animation studio. It's called
Creativity Inc.
Creativity. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've read that?
No, I haven't. I bet many
Oh,
have recommended that one.
I mean, the last book I enjoyed as much as that was the Nike one. The
Okay.
shoe dog or whatever it's called. But
Yeah,
the
sure dog.
Nike
Yeah.
one, yeah, that one, that was brilliant. And then this one was at that level in terms
Okay.
of the books I've enjoyed. Where do you see yourself? As yourself, are you going to be CEO of Lab for You for the next decade? Do you want to settle down in Chile? Do you want to live in Chile for the rest of your life, or do you want to have a family and be in Silicon Valley?
I consider myself a global citizen. I have a team here, great team. I mean, we've invested a lot in building a great culture. The team, people we can trust, talent we can build and grow. So I like that very much. I think there is talent. So I consider myself a global citizen. I want to be a couple of months in Chile, a couple of months in Mexico, a couple of months in the US. Very much millennial nomad builder of businesses. I still don't see myself settled in one place. I find it hard to believe that, at least in the short term. Maybe in the long term, I might think differently. But I'm very passionate about our business. I want to grow the business to make it, $100 million business or more, and continue growing. And if you think of, do you want to build a unicorn? I mean, of course, every founder thinks about building a unicorn. But for me, as long as it's a sustainable business that pays the returns of the funds that have invested in us, that pays the returns to our angel investors and investors, that and also has an impact in society, I think I am going to feel very well about it.
Mission accomplished.
Absolutely.
Tell us, if the audience wants to get a hold of you. You on Instagram, Twitter, email? What do you feel comfortable?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. You just type my name. I try to share business content and content about that for you on LinkedIn. And also I'm on Instagram, Komal Chile. I think I'm on Twitter, Komal Dadlani. But yeah, that's LinkedIn, I think, is the best way to reach me out.
Well, I want to thank you, Komal, for your time today. I really enjoyed this conversation, and I hope you return to us in a few months' time, especially after Davos, and give us some more information.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me. I had a lovely time talking to you.
And to our listeners, you just heard Direct to Chile, a podcast about what it's really like to do business in Chile. And hopefully you can subscribe, and we'll see you around. Thank you very much.